just a summary of GRS, and then we can go into specific questions you may have. So, Michelle, just for my own sake, real quick, who are the grantees that are on this call? Is this all of the CEJA grantees, or is this a specific program?
Well, that is hard to say. We open it up
Okay.
to all the grantees, and
Okay.
so I really don't know. It's the CEJA. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay, that's fine. I just because the way I could do it is I could go into a specific program if it was, a certain grantee. But if it's the whole thing, then that's great. I can still work with that. So I'll go
Yeah.
ahead and share my screen here. Okay. All right. Everyone should be able to see GRS here, and I am in the web-based version, so this is exactly what it should look like for you all. So, like I said, I'm just going to do a brief summary of like the most important screens and how they function, some helpful tips for you all, and then we'll go into your specific questions that you may have. So you'll notice up here that it's always going to ask for your grant number and then the loan designator. You all can ignore the loan designator number. You'll never have to put anything there. So you're just entering your grant number. So it'll be the first two digits, which is the program year for us, and then the specific grant number. So 454001 or 451001, whatever your grant number is there. So for this example, I'm just going to pick the first one that came to my head, which is 454001. So you'll see here that each one of these is a different screen of GRS. So this is the main menu that you'll always see. This is like your guys' main menu. So the way you'll navigate through each one is these buttons on the side here. So obviously there's an enter button, a clear button, and then the PF01 all the way to 24. You'll really only use PF01 to 11, I believe. But each number that's on the side of these is coinciding with that number. So if I wanted to go to cost reporting, then I would hit the PF1 button. But the first thing I'm going to show you all is actually the subgrantee cost ledger summary, or the 362. So I'm going to go ahead and click F6. And then it's going to ask me to type in that grant number again. And I hit enter. So the reason I think this screen is important is because this is kind of what Decio uses to determine how your grant is progressing through the life of the grant. So we can see a live look at your costs that you have entered versus the budget. So and on this screen, you can see every line that you have funds budgeted to. So this grantee, for example, has 225 in personnel, 49.5 in fringe benefits, and it totals them all up for a total grant amount. And then we can see how much costs you have reported as well. So the reason I think this screen's important is I tell grantees when they go to report costs, some of them are confused by the amount of budget lines they have available. But if you print this screen and have this handy when you go to do your cost reporting, you know that you're only going to use these expenditure codes because that's where you have funds loaded. So the only way a budget line will show up on this page is if you have funds loaded. So if there are additional lines that are available to this grantee, but they don't have any funds budgeted, so they take them out. So this is just a simple look of your guys' overall budget. So I tell grantees to print this to a PDF, have this handy while they're doing their cost reporting. The screen is also important because for your quarterly reporting, this is one of the screens that's required that you all PDF and attach to your trial balance. And we'll go over the second screen. There are two screens that are required to be included in your financial reporting that's due on a quarterly basis. So you'll see down here that these menu items change, but this is just a helpful little thing to tell you, how to get to the next screen. So I could hit F8, and if I had two screens worth of budget lines, it would take me further down. But the main menu button is the one I'm looking for, and you'll notice that sometimes it's F6, sometimes it's F10, and sometimes it's F11. So just depending on what screen you are, that might change. So I want to go to main menu, so I'm going to hit PF6, and it's going to take me back here. So the second thing I'll show you all is your cost reporting. So I think of GRS for you all as a three-step process. And it happens to be the first three screens that you have available to you. So your first one is your cost reporting. So every month, you guys are required to come into GRS and report your cost for the previous month. And that's due on the 20th. So on November 20th, all of your October costs should be in GRS. That lets us know that on the 21st, we can come into the system and see as current as possible or up to October 31st where your guys' costs are at. So that's the first step is you do your cost reporting. Your second step is your cost certification, or the screen's called the cost summary screen 352. So essentially what you're doing on the second step is you're just certifying that all those costs that you just entered on the 351 screen are accurate. So it's pretty much just a double check to make sure that what you entered is correct. So once you check and verify that they're all correct, it'll have you certify those costs. And then what that does is it increases your authority to request cash. And that's the third step of the process. So you guys have reported costs to us, and now you're ready to get reimbursed for the costs that you've incurred. So you'll go to the 353 screen or the cash request screen, and you're going to enter a cost or a cash request for those costs. So we'll actually go into each one of those real quick. So like I said, once I went into the first thing here, which is your expenditure reporting, and it takes you to the first expenditure code that's available, which is always going to be 1001, and that's your personnel or salaries and wages. So you can, to navigate through this, it'll take you through each one of your budget lines if you hit the PF08 button. So if I hit it, you'll see that it switches to the 1002. Now it's fringe benefits. And you can do this all the way through each one of the budget lines that's available for your CEJA program. Or you could actually type the number that you're trying to go to in this box, the expenditure code for specific inquiry. So if I want to go back to personnel, I type in 1001 and I hit enter, and it takes me back to the personnel line. So that's when that 362 screen with all the budget lines is kind of handy, because you can go to each one instead of scrolling through every single one that's available for the program. So when you go to report costs, you'll see that you have 2 months available to report. You have the previous month, which is October of 24, and then you have the current month. All that we require is that, like for example, on November 20th, that your October costs are in. So it's not required that you enter costs in the current month. It's always the previous month that we're really trying to make sure all those are wrapped up. But if I wanted to, I could type in, it does ask that you type in the expenditure code that you're trying to hit, and it has to match this here. So expenditure code 1001, I'm saying that I'm trying to hit the 1001 line, and I wanted to enter a cost for my personnel for 2,500 for October. Then if I had any November costs I wanted to report, I could do so, but you don't have to. So I'll say that I have 1,500 in costs for November. So then I come up here, hit the enter button, and you'll see that it pulls those costs over to this category here. So what that did is that just, that's reporting to us that you have $4,000 in your personnel budget line. If you realize that you made a mistake, you'd pretty much just do the same thing, just a reverse entry. So you're going to say, I'm trying to hit 1001, and I wanted to back this all out. So I'm going to put 2,500. And it's important that you put the negative sign after the number. If you try to put it before, it'll actually just take it as 2,500. It'll increase your costs. So negative sign goes after. If I hit enter here, and then all the costs that I've entered are now gone. So then now I'm back to zero. And you'll obviously see here that as you enter costs, it's going to come up over here to your cumulative to date total. And then your balance will decrease by the amount that you just entered. So I'll go ahead and leave this cost. I'll after this training, I'll take it out. But just so we can go on to the next screen. So I'm going to go back to the main menu here, PF11. And I'm going to go to the cost summary screen, which is the F2 button. All right, so this is just a summary of all of your budget line, and this is every single budget line that's available to you all. So you'll see your options down here. That doesn't show every single one on this page. So if you hit PF8, it takes you to the next one, which was 1017, which is indirect costs. And then It'll tell you your certified cost total and then your uncertified. So you can see that the 2,500 that we entered is sitting in uncertified right now. So if I go back to the beginning here, you'll see that uncertified amount is on 1001, which is the personnel line, which is what we wanted. So what you would do on this screen is you're verifying that that amount is correct for any of the costs that you entered. That'll show up here. And then you're going to certify that. So F2 is to certify your cost reported. Once I hit that button and it takes, you'll see that it moved from uncertified into the certified column. And what that really is doing is it's increasing your authority to request cash. Well, what I mean by that is since these grants are reimbursement based, besides the advance portion that should have already been paid out if you guys request an advance, you guys have a 10%, or sometimes it's 20%. I'll have to look on your guys' program to see which one it is. You guys have pretty much like a 10% flex as to where you could request cash that aren't costs that you have in this system. But by entering more costs, it increases your authority to request additional cash. So I'll explain that better on the next page. But so once you're done here and you've certified your costs, you're complete. So you can hit F11 to go back to the main menu. And now you're ready to request the cash for the cost you just reported. So we're going to go to PF03. And this is the cash request screen. So what you'll see here is your cumulative obligation, which is the total grant amount. Your obligation balance should match that, as that's the entire grant that we've obligated in our system for you all. You can see any cash that you have previously requested, and then certified costs to date. So you'll see that your cash request limit is 114,000. That number is kind of misleading because that's considering the fact that some grantees may have requested advances. So what I'm saying is it appears that this grantee has not yet, or it doesn't plan to take an advance, and that's absolutely acceptable. But we reimburse based off of actual costs in the system. So if this grantee actually came in for $100,000 when they only have $2,500 of cost certified and they haven't sent us an advance workbook so we can actually see the breakdown and have approved that, then this request for 100,000 would be denied. If this grantee came in for 2,500, which matches their cost reported, it's more likely that it'll be approved. We do allow a little bit of flexibility with that. So if this grantee came in, with cost reported of 2,500, they came in for $5,000, I'd be more likely to approve that. It's just without the advanced paperwork that we require, it's hard to give an advance for that amount of money. So say this grantee is going to come in here and they want to request the 2,500 in cost they just reported. You'd enter that cash request here, and then you can leave this current cash on hand blank. So you can kind of just disregard this column. And they're going to hit F2, which is certify process cash request. Once I do that, you're going to see that it's a pending request now, and it's their first request. It tells you the date that they requested it and then the amount. If they realize they made a mistake and they need to go back and report additional costs, you can void the pending request. So it has to be pending for that to happen. So it's pretty much like the same day you realize you made a mistake and you need to request more or less, then you can come back in here and void it by hitting F6. So you'll see that it takes that request out altogether. Now we're going to go back to the main menu. So like I said, those are the most important screens where you have to request, or you have to enter your costs into GRS, you have to certify them, and then obviously you all would like to get reimbursed for those costs. So those are the three most important screens of GRS. The rest of them, some of them don't apply to you, and then there's some that are just kind of like fluff screens, as I call them. The first one is the 350 score screen, which is F4. So you'll enter your grant number in here, and then it shows the status of your guys' cash requests. So you'll see here that I entered a request for 2,500 and I voided it, and the status shows as voided. If I had left that cash request in there, it's going to show a status of pending. Excuse me. And that it'll stay pending until it receives the two-step approval process that occurs at Decio. And that's between our accounting department and then myself. I approve them for all of OET grants. So once both of those approvals have happened, you'll see that a DECIO approved date has showed up. And then that gives accounting the notification that they can voucher this request for the comptroller's office for payment. So once they do that, you'll see that it gets vouchered, it gets a voucher number issued, and then a date goes in here. At that point, you guys can actually go to the comptroller's website and see the status of the payment as it pays out to you all. Let's go back to the main menu here. So we already went over the 362 screen, which is your subgrantee cost ledger. The other screen that's required for your quarterly reporting, I'll go over next, is the 371 screen. So it'll have you enter your grant number here. Okay. So the two things that you're gonna be reporting on this screen, if they occur, is your program income and program interest. So your program income, an example of program income is like a rebate occurring for something that you purchased with grant funds. So say you received a $50 rebate and your receipts of that, excuse me, $50, you're in receipt of $50. Your grant agreements will state that any program income or interest that is received using grant funds is required to be dispersed before grant funds go out the door. So you would put a $50 disbursement there and hit F2 to make a change. Excuse me. And then that would show a receipt of $50 and then a disbursement of $50. What we don't want to see is a balance here. If we see that there's a balance, then that means that you haven't spent those funds. The other idea is, or the other transaction that occurs here is a program interest. So say you all did take an advance and you have those funds sitting in a program or interest bearing account, then you would, if you received interest, then you would put that in there. Give me 1 second. I'm going to get a drink of water real quick. Okay. Sorry about that. So you're in receipt of $2.50 from your interest bearing account. You'll show that you're in receipts of it. You'll enter the $2.50 here as a disbursement and then hit F2 to change. So that shows that your balance is zero. And then you could actually print the screen to PDF and attach it to your quarterly reporting. To back out these costs, you just have to do as you did on the reporting screen and put a negative sign at the end of it. And then hit F2. And then all those costs will go away. So this screen, the only time you'll actually report on it is if either of those two transactions occur, income or interest. A lot of times grantees don't have anything to report here, so you just print it and then attach it. In reality, those are the main screens that you all will use. You don't have to worry about this program income, the WEA percentage obligation update, or the petition reporting. So really, those are the main screens that you all would use. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Let me see if there's any questions in the chat real quick. Is there a listing for the expenditure codes? And there's corresponding descriptions. So I don't think there is. The only place that you could receive that is from that 362 screen that I mentioned. A lot of times we'll include it. It's included in your budget. So if you have your uniform budget template, then you could see those numbers in their associated budget listing. But the best spot is the 362 screen for you to see the ones that are actually pertaining to you that you've loaded budget to. Any other questions? Yeah, your uniform budget or the 362 screen, both will have them. So And if you guys have specific questions for your grant, feel free to reach out now. This is the time if you have questions. If not, you can also email me, and I should be able to help that way as well if needed. Okay. Hearing none. Michelle, do you have other items to go over in this webinar, or was this it for the day?
I do not. I'm just very surprised somebody has any question. Um, Uniform budget. So no one has any questions about expenditures and what's required. You did such a good job, Josh.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and if questions come up, or maybe the right audience wasn't here, the fiscal staff that actually do the reporting or something, weren't on the call, they can refer to the recording or just reach out to me directly, and I can work with them. So
And yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. So this recording will be available. We'll get it sent out, but also it'll be stored in your partner guide as well. Let's see. I do have a question. Seeing how to use the F keys reference at the bottom of each page was really helpful. So not a
good.
question, but a comment.
Yeah, this
Great.
system is ancient. So like honestly, most of our technical assistance with GRS comes just from trying to make the system work. I know there's a system that's being tested with Dekio for some of our grants, but I don't know if in the lifetime of these grants that will ever come about. So we'll see.
So someone was asking how to contact Josh directly, but wouldn't I think that you prefer them contacting their grant manager, is that right?
I think that's probably the best way to do it is
Yeah,
starting with your grant manager. If your grant manager doesn't, know how to answer a question, then they can reach out to me. So that way it's a learning
right.
environment for everyone. So
That's definitely the best scenario. So
when a grantee is provided a cash advance, how is that paid back or accounted for and when? So that's a great question. I don't know that it's been discussed with the CEJA grantees, but essentially we allow you guys to have a working advance. So it's not that we'll never send you another cash request until your costs are exactly up to your advance that you've requested initially. We'll give you like a working amount, and it's usually around like the 2 months of operating costs essentially that we can let you all float um, closer to the end of the grant. But I would say as it comes down to the end of your grant, perhaps like when you're entering costs, don't come in for the full amount. That way we can get closer and we don't run into the situation where we have a refund, because those kind of take time to process with our accounting department and the system they have now. So I'd say that we'll probably, as these grants end, we'll look at your cash requests and make a determination if you need to come in for the full amount. But there'll be more guidance on that as we approach that time.
hey, any other questions for Josh?
Okay.
I am not seeing any for Josh. Are there any questions about anything? We have a few extra minutes. So I just want to make sure we take this time to answer any questions or attempt to answer any questions that you might have. Okay. All right. Well, this is great. So I'm not seeing any additional questions about this topic or any topic. So I will give you all some time back then.
Perfect.
And thank you, Josh, and thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you on the next TA Tuesday.